What is the longest 5 minutes you have ever experienced? Being a kid and waiting for my mom to finish talking to friends. That ain't 5 minutes though. That's legit an hour. I was on placement with a doctor and he told a patient that he might lose his leg due to diabetes. It obviously upset him, but the doctor left to go get something, leaving me in the room with "Hi monsieur." He must have been gone for only 2 minutes, but I swear it felt like 20. The guy was quietly sobbing to himself and I had no idea what to do or say. So, on the plus side, you'll save 50% off shoes on the way to a toilet trying to hold back destructive diarrhea in a public place. Then trying to silence your butthole as it sputters out in a bathroom stall where there is a huge gap between the bottom of the door and the floor, and where every little sound seems to echo. Then cleaning up with fucking one-ply toilet paper. I used to deal with this at least once a month from my period. Sometimes vomit at the same time as diarrhea. I was in college, so every bathroom I had access to was a public bathroom. Monsieur sucked. Edit. Obligatory thank you, kind stranger. Also, for people saying you experience this, please talk to your OBGYN. There are birth controls that do wonders. I still get period shits, but no more vomit. And it's no longer so bad that I think I'm going to die. Not even close. Period shits are orchestrated by Satan. In 5th grade, while the principal was listing off the profanities, I searched on Google Earth. Fucking, Austria. Twat. UK. Pennystone. UK. Upper Ramsbottom. UK. Edit. Not real. Apparently, those cartographers certainly have a sense of humor. Cockermouth. UK. Comwell Lane. Rotherham. UK. Clitheroe. UK. Waiting in front of the bathroom because I need to pee but my brother locked the door. Being young and waiting for my mom to pick me up from somewhere and she was late. Waiting at the DMV line that lead to the true DMV line. Such a wonderful multicultural experience. The DMV really has it all. Disgruntled governmental employees. Inefficient. On the verge of going postal. Best assortment of cultural representation you'll find in one place. They should have food vendors and bands playing all types of music. It should be a more celebratory experience. Waiting for that pregnancy test result, regardless of how you want the result to sway. Waiting for HIV tests as well. Even if you were with the same person since the last time you both got tested or used condoms every time. You can't help but wonder if some Lifetime movie shit is about to happen to you. My son was silent when he was born. The doctor gave me a serious look, handed me the scissors to cut the umbilical cord, and then rushed my son to a table on the other side of the room. I moved to the head of the bed to tell my wife what a great job she did. I honestly have no idea how long it took to hear him cry. But those seconds, minutes were the longest year of my life. He turned 20 last month. Same here. 6 minutes to make a noise. 11 to full-on normal crying. The NICU staff was there ready to take him, but ultimately decided not to since it was just a slow start and not any actual problem, monsieur. We say he was oversleeping and pressed snooze a few too many times and missed his bus, which I am known to do. Greater than handed me the scissors to cut the umbilical cord. This was never discussed with me beforehand, so I was surprised to be doing it, period. But especially under the circumstances. Why slow things down just for that when there appears to be a problem? They even said, quick, as they handed them over. My first daughter let out 3 quick but loud cries, then opened her eyes and began looking around. So when my second daughter was born, that was kind of the baseline for what I was expecting. However, my second daughter was basically born asleep and spent the first 3 days asleep. Except for maybe 15 minutes cumulative of being awake. She was asleep for every feeding, which I had to do with a syringe. They kept her in the hospital longer to do extra tests. But by about day 4, she started to stay awake for longer and longer. She just passed the 4-month mark and now we begged her to sleep. Sang a song in front of line 300 people without a monitor, so I couldn't hear shit, but I just knew I was totally off key. Edit. Like asterisk. Stick in an earplug before you go out. Get a flesh-colored one so it's not obvious. In a pinch, just put your finger in your ear. I recently had a very frightening sleep paralysis. It probably just lasted for a few minutes, but it felt like ages. Edited using Power Delete Suite. 6 months ago, anesthesia ended too soon while the surgeon was still stitching up my knee after realigning my patella. There were still 3 stitches to go. I still can't decide what was the worst pain, the tourniquet on the top of my thigh or the stitches. This happened to me in my last C-section. Number 4, so there was a lot of scar tissue and baby was in an awkward position. Took longer than usual to get in. Spinal wore off and I was feeling everything. They injected some local, but that didn't help. I didn't want to be put under gauze, so I just took it. Won't ever have another baby again. That was traumatic. I have a less harrowing answer as well. The last 5 minutes of an ultrasound on your abdomen, when forced to do so with a full bladder. Especially when I got my appointment wrong and showed up an hour early. I have, in all my 30+ years, never had to pee so badly. Lol. Removed. The whole 5 minutes on a treadmill. Look at Usain Bolt over here running for 5 whole minutes. When I was a kid, my mom told me to wait online at the supermarket, and then she went to go get some more things. The person who was at the cashier had just paid and the lady in front of me began unloading her not heavily packed shopping cart. She had almost finished loading and was about ready to pay when my mother finally reappeared. Those were simultaneously the longest and the shortest and most terrifying 5 minutes of my life. My dad did this to me when I was about 7 or 8. The cashier ended up scanning everything before my dad came back, and I just remember bursting into tears when she told me the total price. As a cashier, I always tried to scan as slowly as possible if I was getting to the last few items. And just the kid was there. Like, oh, the bags could use a restock before this bread goes in. And crap, am I out of receipt paper? I remember being that kid and it was the worst. That's so empathetic of you. Thanks for doing that. Now that I'm in my mid-20s, whenever I go grocery shopping with my mom, I make her wait in the line. And if she remembers some last-minute item, I go and fetch it. It's basically a "no you, move." A presentation about grass. I don't know why we had to watch it, or why they chose to do it. Greater than I don't know why we has to watch it, or why they chose to do it. Cash, ass, or presentation about grass. No one rides for free. At the hospice holding my husband's hand as he died. Longest 5 minutes of my life. Just pronounced somebody during my overnight shift. Her family held her hand as she died. It's one of the most natural things we do in life. Insert everybody dies line here. But being there and being part of the moment is probably the best thing you could have done for him. And for yourself. I still admire your strength to be there. I'm so sorry. Wife had a seizure during labor. They couldn't find the baby's heartbeat afterwards and rushed to emergency C-section. Everything stabilized, but it was scary. Seemed to go on forever. 4 years later, everyone is happy and healthy. Loading screens in games back when I had a laptop. I have so many Sims 4 loading screen tooltips memorized. Whims are things your Sims want to do, but you don't have to. I am a police dispatch officer and I had a 6-year-old girl call in on the emergency number, and the first thing she said was, "There are men here and they're hurting daddy." The time it took for the first unit to arrive at the scene was the longest minutes in my life. We were lucky we had units nearby. Oh man, this brings back a fucked up memory. I once lived in a not-so-great part of town near my college. It was the night before my last set of finals sophomore year, and I had just finished studying my ass off for 2 days straight and was getting ready for what I thought would be a solid night of sleep. I wake up to a man yelling, and a woman crying hysterically. I look out my window. I was on the 3rd floor, and see this man standing in the middle of the street, weirdly lit by the streetlight, and a sobbing woman runs after him and tries to grab "Hi monsieur," he proceeds to backhand her. She falls down and he yells at her. She gets up and I think what I saw was him punch her repeatedly. Except suddenly there is blood fucking everywhere, and she is screaming like I've never heard before. My hands went numb when I tried to call 911. And as I get an operator on the line, this woman is trying to drag herself away while this guy is kicking her and has a fucking steak knife in his hands. Luckily the cops and paramedics showed up quickly, but the first words out of this guy's mouth are him yelling, "Ah, I didn't mean it. It was an accident." Then, as he's getting tackled, he yells at his kids, who I realize at this point witnessed the whole thing. "Which of y'all little bitches called the cops? You know I didn't mean it." They couldn't have been older than 5 or 6. Trying to help somebody you are certain will bleed out before the ambulance gets there. I'm a paramedic. When the patient isn't doing so hot, I can tell you 5 minutes on the way to the hospital lasts a long-ass time. Fellow medic, I sometimes do long-distance, 3.5-hour transports, and man, I've had some long moments in the box. Very short backstory. I was born with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and have been largely bedridden and wheelchair-bound for the past 6 or so years. Now it's called jaw. Replace rheumatoid with idiopathic. But I'm not sure which branch I belong to. Regardless, because of my disease, my hip replaced when I was 19. Story. Back in November, I was diagnosed with TTP, and was in the process of dying. I was in and out of consciousness, and quickly nearing the state of permanent brain damage. Unable to speak properly, knowing what words I wanted to say, and only being able to get out bathroom and birthday, plus general confusion. Meanwhile, the doctors in the ICU were hooking tubes to my femoral artery, while wholly unable to understand what I was trying to say, because I had only ever had one problem with my hip in the past, and I had no idea what was going on, other than that I said yes to surgery. Oh, yeah, I could nod or shake my head, but could only say no. I often forget that because the birthday and bathroom thing was so traumatizing. I was sure it was related, which meant something was wrong with my hip replacement. I was then convinced that was the problem, and that I would need weeks to heal. Not that I had during my actual replacement. Now that I think of it. Weird. Anyway, when I was going in and out of consciousness, I thought each time I woke up was a new morning. Weeks and weeks were going by, and I was slowly healing every day. Until one morning I woke up and started to panic. I was feeling better. The pain was gone, so I must have been healed. But if weeks, it possibly even months had gone by, then where was my fiancé? Where was my son? When the panic had fully set in, I was convinced everyone thought I had died, and my fiancé was distraught and killed himself, because it was the only way he would ever not come visit me for so long. And my son was sent to live with his abusive alcoholic of a sperm donor. Absolutely freaking out. I've never felt so vulnerable in my life as I did that moment. I tried desperately to ask the nurse about my fiancé. After about a dozen slowly articulated pleas of birthday and bathroom, I decided to try boyfriend instead, only to come out with birth friend. Thankfully that was enough. My nurse went from giving me a kind, yet frustrated nods to a purposeful rigidity, then said, "Boyfriend, you want fiancé's name?" I nodded like a bobblehead on crack. That's when she said the words that are likely the most relieving thing I've heard to date. He was on his way. When he got there, I had to be sedated because I tried to get out of my bed to climb him like a tree. I never wanted to let him go. A few days later and he was still with me when I was able to start talking again. The first thing I asked my fiancé when he got there, "How long have I been here?" To which he replied, "1 day." The idea of being able to think, but having no way of communicating your thoughts sounds downright terrifying. How are you today? How was the recovery process? My grandma had a stroke a few years ago, and since then she hasn't been able to speak properly anymore. When she's in a good mood she gets out some words, and she can get out some familiar things. For example, old songs that she has known all her life or the Lord's Prayer. But most of the time she can't really communicate what she wants to say. It can be very frustrating for both sides, to say the least. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.